G.K. Masterson asks, in the long term, will we actually be able to bridge the divide between the urban areas and the rest of the country? Or is this just the next in a long series of steps that winds up with us splitting into multiple countries? Interesting how once they lost the election, secession became a on-the-table idea for the left. GK, in the last weeks before the election, I did a lot of soul-searching about a lot of things, and of the many things I've realized is that people get the government they deserve, and I've also realized that this country has, in fact, been in a civil war for probably 20 years now, I would say, 16, something like that. Once George Bush won in 2000, and the election was so close, and the fact that the left just completely delegitimized him, never, ever, literally, figuratively, they stole all the W's off of the typewriter keys in the country before he got a chance to do anything. So I watched 8 years of them savaging Bush, and I watched 8 years of these comedians just attacking Bush and not attacking anybody else, and I watched the whole thing, and then I watched 8 years of Obama, and I watched the whole other side of the thing with them fawning over this guy, and we've been told the same thing for so many years, that the Trump victory is in fact the voice of the people, saying we've had enough of being told what to do by people who are obviously wrong. We've been at war with each other for a long time, and it's been pretty much a one-way war. It's been the left on the offensive and us just retreating. They understood our weaknesses. They scoped us out. The left looked at the American people and basically said, what is their weakness? And they realized that our weakness is our decency. It's our decency. And so they realize, since we're decent people and we play by the rules, they understand that anything that happens by the rules we'll accept, and anything that they can break the rules to win, then we'll, as long as they cover it up, we'll accept it. They understood that as decent people, we're not racist, so if they accuse us of being racist, since we're decent people, we will put our heads down and shut up. And they've played everything off of our decency. So it's been a one-way civil war from a group that started out with 2 or 3% of the population back in the 50s and has grown to 50% of the population now. And we just thought it was a difference of opinion. But no, these people are trying to destroy this, all of it. And it's become more and more obvious over the years. So now it's time for us to actually fight back. And I think that this company and the messages that we do could be special forces. And we have to realize that we're fighting an insurgency for a while. Even with the Trump win, we're so badly outnumbered that if we decide to go toe-to-toe with these people, they'll just destroy us with superior firepower. We got to be smarter than they are, and we are. We got to be quicker, and we got to be more cool, and we got to be faster, and all of these things. The good news is, kids out there who are college Republicans or Young Americans for Freedom or Turning Point USA kids, they are under so much pressure to conform. The fact that they join these organizations means that, number one, they're very smart, and number two, they're very brave. And these are going to be the people that are going to liberate this country. I want to get some weaponry to these young conservatives so that they can make other young conservatives while they're on campus. And the last one is Matthew Lloyd again. And this is a good thing I wanted to close with. That's why I moved this to the bottom here. He says, can we finally deal the death blow to the Democratic Party and set their agenda back 100 years? They'll be back like zombies, but maybe we can get a generational reprieve, ... This is a good point to close on. Here's something you have to understand, I think. Not you, Matthew, I mean all of us together. It took a while for me to understand it, and it's hard to understand because it's not pleasant to understand. It's a hard thing to face. And the thing that we have to understand is that we can never win, but we can lose. And the reason that we can never win, but we can lose, is because entropy is on the side of the left. It's easier to give somebody something. It's easier to take something from somebody than it is to go out and make your own. It's easier. Entropy is on their side. Everything about socialism and progressivism is to appeal to people's base emotions, their laziness, their envy, their covetousness, all of this stuff. So we cannot beat them. When I say beat them, I mean beat them and relax. All we can do is fight them. And it's really important that we understand this. Rust never sleeps. And in the battle between you and a well-maintained yard, your battle for a well-maintained yard, you have to understand that the instant that you put that lawnmower away after having cut the grass is growing again. It's growing as you put the lawnmower away. The grass is not as closely cut as it was 5 minutes ago. It's growing all the time, and Russ never sleeps. And this is what we're fighting. We're fighting a movement that's designed to, well, look, it's actually it's even simpler than that. See, the progressives are not really trying to progress us into anything other than what we used to have, which is a group of people who are either smart or well-connected or ruthless or bastardly or whatever, ruling over everybody else. That's what the world has been since there's been humans, since there's been civilizations or societies. It's been a small group of people who claim to be smarter or better or more in touch with God or stronger or more nasty or more willing to behead people, whatever, that have ruled other people. So it's not even like the left is trying to take us someplace. It's just trying to undermine this fluke in human history that is America. This fluke where a number of people of such intellect and such persuasive mannerisms and such stature and such courage were for 250 years able to get people to work opposite human nature and realize the benefits that came from things like discipline and planning for the future and cooperation and doing what you say you're going to do, even when it's easier to get out of it. Even when doing the right thing is destructive. You do the right thing because long term it's worth it. So America's this little blip in the history books of people having figured out a way to do things better. It's hard for us to understand as Americans, but the truth is, when you go to other parts of the world, there is no sense that we can make things better. There's no sense of, we should improve this. It just doesn't enter. There's a sewer in the middle of the village because there's always been a sewer in the middle of the village. We could fix it. Why? Because it'd be better. My fathers did it this way, and my father's fathers, and so on. So the left has that working for them. They have envy working for them. It's easier to be angry about somebody else working hard and doing well and then taking their stuff. Taking somebody else's stuff is easier than getting your own stuff. It's easier to tax a business than it is to run a business. It's easier to take other people's money than it is to go out and make your own. And that's why the left can never be beaten. They can only be fought. They have these base motives, and we have to appeal to people's not only higher motives, we have to appeal to we have to convince them that there's nothing better than working hard. Our challenge in terms of the long run, in terms of the next 4 years, is actually going to be pretty simple, I think. We have to make the case why being a good person is more fun than being a bad person. And that's not apparently obvious, because when you get into, when you try to fight this drug thing, and people say, don't do drugs, and drugs are bad. Okay. But if you're really serious about getting people off of drugs, you have to start with the fact that drugs are awesome. They're not for me. I've never needed them. I've never used them. But for the people that do drugs, drugs are awesome. The reason they destroy their lives over drugs is because the drug experience is so unbelievably amazing to those people that they're willing to destroy everything for it. If we don't start from the drugs are awesome beginning, then we're never going to get to the heart of the problem. By saying drugs are bad, it just makes you sound like you don't have any idea what you're talking about. We have to convince people that doing the right thing is not just better, because things have decayed so much that we can't just say you should do this because it's better for you. We have to actually say we have to do this because it's more fun. It's more fun to work hard than it is to sit around on the couch. Most people have a problem with that, but I get the sense that after 8 years of Obama, even progressives are starting to see this. Nobody, myself included, and everybody else, we've been telling people what we're against, been telling people about how bad these people are, but no one's ever gone out there, to my knowledge, and made a concise, across-the-board pitch for why this is a better life. It's more fun to work hard at a job you care about and then go out and get something with those rewards than it is to do nothing. It's a lot more fun. It's a lot more fun. In fact, there's nothing like it. There's nothing more fun than working hard to achieve what you want to do. And there's nothing more fun than that. And the more setbacks you have and the more tragedies, the more fun it is in the end. It's just fun. There's nothing like it. Nothing. And this is the challenge. is that we have to convince people that these things that are obviously fun, like just all this promiscuous sex and all this whole, porn culture and all the rest of this stuff, which has got a tremendous appeal, we have to understand that appeal, and we can't pretend it's not there. We just have to say, yes, but this is better. It's more fun. And it's more fun in every way. It's just, we're just happier. That's why we're happier. What's life about? You want to be happy, right? You're doing the drugs because you want to be happy. If you're very miserable, just getting a hit is 3-4 hours of not being miserable. So we have to show people that there's a way to be happier than taking these quick, measures that just do nothing but make your situation worse and worse and worse. It's hard. So we could do it, but it's going to be a challenge, I think. So when you say, Matt, that how do we push them back for 100 years? We don't. The final thing I'll say about this tonight is this. You have to understand that if you're in this as a conservative, as we understand the term, if you're a patriot and a conservative and you're looking around at the world today, you have to understand that it's easier for a garden to return to weeds than it is for them to grow roses. If you leave the garden alone, you will not get neatly manicured rose gardens and rose bushes and luxurious green grass. If you leave the garden alone, you get weeds, and it will be weeds till the end of time, because the weeds can win, but the roses have to fight every day. That's just the way it is. And if you don't accept that, you're going to be heartbroken. So what do? We have to roll this gigantic boulder up a hill, and it's an awful amount of work, and it's painful, and it's strenuous. And we roll this rock up the hill, and at the end of the day, we think, my God, we did it. We finally got the rock up the hill. We go to bed at night, and we wake up in the morning, and the rock's at the bottom of the hill again. And we start asking questions like, well, how many times do we have to roll this up the hill so it doesn't roll down again? Or at least, how far can we roll it up the hill so we can at least rest for 4 or 5 days? And the answer is never. It doesn't happen that way. This is the deal. This is the hand. You don't have to like it, but you have to accept it. This is our lot in life. This is the hand that we have been dealt as conservatives, and or this is the hand that we've come to. The easy hand is to hang out with the popular kids and to do all the drugs and all the sex and do all these other things that all of these people with money and power and fame and glamour have. But you look at people like Lady Gaga, or you look at people like Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus is a perfect example. Does she strike you as a happy person? She doesn't strike me as a happy person. She strikes me as a desperately insecure person who's doing anything for attention. When we look at the lives of celebrities, are these happy marriages? When Whitney Houston dies of a drug overdose, Whitney Houston is one of the most gifted singers and one of the most beautiful women in the world, and she dies in a bathtub on a drug overdose because she's become a crack whore. What is it about her life that drove her to that when, in fact, she was given so many blessings? What is it? We have to identify what it is about this, just broadly call it left-wing behavior, and say to people, and make the case. I mean, not just tell them this, you have to explain it, but basically you have to make the case why that's bad for you. Last night I was talking about, at ASU, I was talking about income inequality, and I said, some people are born with 4 aces and a king, and there's nothing you can do about that. Nothing. Some people come into the world with not even a pair. You got a 2, a 6, a 9, a jack, and a 3. And that's your hand. And in America, you should be able to improve your hand and play your hand. But one point that nobody's making is pretty much true, and I think that's this. If you see somebody who's born into a life where they have 4 aces and a king, that's the hand they drew when they came into the world. I've never met anybody, and I've never heard of anybody, who was born with 4 aces and a king who turned out okay, who was a noble person or a happy person. I see nothing but misery there. Because the worst thing that can happen to you is to be given everything you want. How do we explain this to people? It's hard, but this is ultimately, when you're finally finished and said and done, this is the challenge. How do you convince people that the worst thing that can ever happen to them is to be given everything that they want for free? It's the challenge. There's many things I want in this world, and there's a bunch of toys I want in this world, and I've had a bunch of them too, by the way. But I worked very hard for the car. I worked very hard for the business. I worked very hard for the airplane. It cost me a lot, and so it meant a lot to me. If it had just been given to me, I would have flown it a couple times and been bored with it, and then I would have needed something bigger and something more stimulating, and I would have needed, a higher dose. And there's no chasing that, because that never ends. There is never a dose that you can get to catch yourself or fill that hole. So anyway, that's that. And at 2 minutes and